beautiful, perfect. 10 out of 10. It's... it's so good. It's so good. Oh. It's so good. Give me a moment. Oh. I would have to talk about how this film is so good. I mean, aside from the obvious and quite frankly kind of cliched reasons why a Studio Ghibli film would be good. Great animation, we know that. Unique style, we know that. Relatable characters, we know all of that. And quite frankly, it's kind of what you expect to find in a Studio Ghibli film by default. By the way, that's how I pronounce Studio Ghibli. Not Ghibli, I pronounce it Ghibli. And I'm not the only one. Get off my case on that. Anyway. When Marnie was there, how to describe about this without actually spoiling it, because that's going to be the most difficult part, because this is really good, but many of the reasons why this is really good and it works at such a fundamental level are actually in massive spoiler territory to be found. So, and I cannot bring myself to spoil this film to you, because you really need to go find this DVD and watch this film right now. Your life depends on it. One of the best films of 2015, to say the very least. Absolutely, if I am going to do a top 10 films of 2015, I'm definitely going to put this up there somewhere. So, first of all, look at this cover. What would you expect to find? What kind of film would you expect to find with this kind of cover for its DVD case? If the words tragic gay romance come to mind, or at least tragic and romance, then you'd be completely wrong. But that's okay, because I fell for the trap as well. I mean, look at this freaking DVD cover. They're like... Look at it. There are two girls holding each other's hands, but not looking at each other, symbolizing a deep bond that's also forbidden, not accepted by society, so it's kind of secret. And then there is the sea. Because why wouldn't there be the sea? So I was expecting something along those lines. But still, something that along those lines, but still good, because it's Studio Ghibli behind them. And I had a rant prepared about the very obnoxious and quite frankly demeaning trend of the tragic gay romance. This gimmicky, quite frankly, gimmicky idea that mass media has basically been abusing ever since the success of Brokeback Mountain. This idea of basically selling a romance, a tragic romance, with the gimmick, the added gimmick of the fact that the two romantically involved people are homosexuals. So never mind the fact that they are humans with emotions and psychologies and actual human beings. That doesn't matter, because the fact that they are gay sells tickets. It's such an obnoxious trend. I mean, it's also another form of homophobia in its own right, because by doing that, by selling a tragic romance, a tragic love story, with the tagline, because they're gay, it's forbidden, society this, and cannot be together, blah 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 blah. In this day and age, it's like basically emphasizing the idea that homosexual people are not normal yet. That homosexuality is not normality yet. Even though it mostly is. Mostly should be. So really, like I said, the tragic gay romance, it feels like it's something that mass media are dishing out for a wide, straight audience to throw its money to. Sell it to a straight audience. It's basically what that one episode of South Park was making fun of, satirizing on. The fact that homosexuality is something that is actually sold as a cheap means of storytelling, for straight audiences to literally throw their money at. You know which episode of South Park I'm talking about. The only good episode in this otherwise lackluster latest season of South Park, if you ask me. Anyway, all of that discourse, all of that rant, completely left to the side because it actually has nothing to do with this film at all. It might seem there is something implied between the two main characters at some point, but it's actually more of a misdirection, a really, really, really subtle misdirection, because homosexuality, gay, tragedy, or even romance have absolutely nothing to do with when Marnie was there. To the point that even bringing up this rant, just because I thought the cover was going to imply this is something that it's not, was actually a complete waste of time for the sake of this review. In fact, I pretty much wasted 6 minutes 40 seconds of this video. I apologize. I had to get that out of my chest. So, what is actually this film about? Well, it's about the two things that Studio Ghibli does better than merely anyone else in the entire world: childhood and growing up. That's basically the plot, come to think of it. It's about this child, Anna, this one, and essentially her own problems. The problems of essentially being 12, young, in that awkward phase in between childhood and adolescence, in which you start to question things in life and subconsciously, and you become aware of feelings that you were not aware of, and you become a bit self-centered, but that's okay because you're 12, and also you start hating yourself, and you might be one of those children with behavioral problems that don't fit in preconceived behavioral patterns that society accepts, quote unquote. But that's okay, because you're 12, you're growing up, and these are problems that eventually, as you mature, you will overcome. But nevertheless, even though it's easy to say that you overcome those early adolescence problems when you're an adult, when you were 12, it feels like the entire world is crushing you. And it's really, really hard to capture that feeling, that emotional state, that psychological and emotional turmoil that is being 12 and growing up. And like I said, that's something that the Studio Ghibli does better than anyone else, because they focus on the idea of not just writing a character that, fits towards some specific archetypes, like the problem child that's different for the sake of being different, like most kids, most adolescents, most teenagers would usually be written in a lesser product. The focus here is to make this character absolutely believable. A believable 12 years old with believable and somewhat relatable problems, with the addition of a very specific background that also puts things into perspective for her as a character, as an individual person. And I wish I could stop the review right now, because honestly, anything beyond that would spoil the, quite frankly, ingenious narrative and the emotional journey she goes through, and what Marnie means to her, Marnie the blonde girl, and not in a romantic way, as it turns out to be, but more in a symbolic way. Marnie in this film, it's not a romantic partner. Marnie is more of a ghost, but not really a ghost, more of a memory. But not exactly any normal memory or a living memory, not a poltergeist, and it's not quite a fragment of our imagination either. She's like somewhere in between all of these things. And the ending wraps everything up quite nicely, explaining what all of this is about. But the focus of the film itself is, again, the growth of the main character, what she goes through and what she already went through. The fact that her being an orphan that was adopted by step-parents becomes pivotal to her feeling of loneliness and also her fear to making new friends and meeting new people. And she retracts herself in her drawings because, of course, she's an artist. Why wouldn't she be an artist? Talking about archetypes, but never mind that. We, as an adult audience, well, I specifically, as an adult audience member, know from the beginning that her stepmother, her mother that adopted her, loves her so much, but she herself is afraid that Anna would not love her back because, again, she's not quote-unquote the real mother. And Anna is resentful for both her parents dying and leaving her alone. Again, she's 12. And also she is resentful to her stepmother because in her mind, in her young mind, she doesn't feel like a real mother. And again, she's been 12. And the film does a great job in portraying children, adolescents, early adolescent kids in a believable way. And you'll be surprised how hard it is for some people, for some artists, for some storytellers to properly convey what it means to be 12 and a character that's actually in the very delicate phase of growth. But again, Studio Ghibli makes it look so easy to do. And I can never stop admiring the talents and the writers and the animators involved in such works for what they can pull off. No matter how otherwise pretty tired I become of the style of Studio Ghibli, which by now I've seen a million times before this. By the way, it looks gorgeous. Surprise, surprise, a Studio Ghibli film looks gorgeous. Who would have thunk? So yes, this is basically my review of when Marnie was there. I cannot tell you anything more about this film because it would otherwise ruin some of its more important plot moments, so to speak. And yes, the story here is actually worth not knowing beforehand. There are a few twists and a few developments that really put things into perspective. But the film never forgets that the focus of the story is Anna herself, and again, her young teenage problems, and by the end of it, she matures and grows up and essentially becomes more happy. It's okay to be this young. It's okay to be afraid of life. It's okay to be afraid of growing up. It's okay to be afraid of being too young. It's okay to be young. It's a phase. You will surpass it. You will grow up, and the people who love you, the people who really care about you, will never stop loving you. It doesn't matter if they are blood related or not. Mwah! Mwah! I adore this film, and you will adore it too if you give it a watch, which you should do immediately. Well, this is the last one that I had to review this year. Now all that's left to do is wait for the year to finally end. Now, one last thing. In the days in between the 30th of December and the 4th of January, I'll be out in Sicily, down in the deep south. So I will not be posting any videos in that period of time. I'm letting you know beforehand in case you wonder where am I disappeared to, even though it's not even a week, come to think of it. But anyway, I thought you might want to know what I plan to do for the end of the year, if you actually care to know. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going on a vacation. I also bought a Nintendo Wii U and a copy of Splatoon. And for some reason I cannot access online battles, even though I have everything else set up the way it's supposed to. Which is frustrating. Which is very frustrating. Hopefully I've solved that problem. But anyway, this was a little bit of an extra update, because why not, since I'm here. And this has been an otherwise much shorter video than the last one. So there you go. Enjoy your holidays, whatever they might be. Enjoy your seasonal shifting, I guess. And for the love of God, please do buy this film and enjoy it with all your might. No.